Oh, that's cool I guess. Yo, chances are you've seen my first gear abilities guide for the tri-stringer on my channel. If you have, thank you for helping make that my most viewed video so far. But I must kindly ask you to forget everything I said in that video. Mostly. Yeah, it's only been a bit over 2 weeks since I posted that video, but in that short time, the Splatoon community has learned a lot more about the gear meta for this new game. And frankly, I think posting this video this early was as reliable as pure speculation. Speculation that I feel I missed the mark on. So naturally, I felt that this video was necessary to make. Also, I finally checked out that fun statistic that your favorite YouTuber probably ranked up in their videos. 94.6 is a lot of unsubscribed people, isn't it? If you find my content useful, please consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications since I'm putting out a new video every Wednesday and Saturday at noon Eastern time. Now before I get into the big stuff, I want to preface that this video will be in a different style than the rest of my videos have been so far. You can probably tell because I changed the music for this one. Whereas most of my videos so far have been in the style of quick tips and tricks, this video is going to be a lot more thorough and discussion based. If you're just here to see my new tri-stringer build, you can skip to that chapter of the video. But if you want to hear my thought process and reasoning behind all my decisions, I recommend you stick around. With that out of the way, let's look at what I had originally planned as my go-to build back in my older video. I'm not so sure about this anymore. But what exactly has changed between that video and now? Well, for one, I've had a lot more time to play the tri-stringer and to understand which play patterns best fit this weapon, as well as which abilities best enable those play patterns. Other than that though, there's one thing in particular that has been a game changer for me. beta.sendu.inc. If you're into competitive Splatoon at all and have been working on your own gear builds, chances are you've already been using this website. But if you haven't heard of it or even started using it, it's time to get on it. This website, made by Splatoon pro player Sendu, lets you create builds for every weapon in Splatoon 3. It lets you see other players' builds, and best of all, it lets you analyze the effects of abilities in your build. This analyzer was insanely helpful for me when working on my weapon builds, and it's a need for anyone else planning to do the same. Enough with this website though. Let's look at what opinions of mine have changed. The first thing I want to talk about is the debate between running Thermal Ink or Respawn Punisher on your tri-stringer build that I mentioned in my previous video. Here's what I said before. Now the first ability I want to look at is Respawn Punisher, which is a classic choice for many backline weapons. A good tri-stringer, like any typical backline role, usually doesn't die very much, so if you're able to keep yourself alive for a long time, I would recommend running this ability. I'd also like to give a mention to Thermal Ink. You needed to be able to hit directs, be long ranged, and actually have a reason to use X-ray vision. It just so happens though that the tri-stringer fits perfectly into this niche. Still, the ability it provides is a gamble to give up for the consistent benefit of Respawn Punisher. I want to point out that one thing I mentioned, which is that running Respawn Punisher on tri-stringer would give you consistent benefit. As time has gone on, myself and others have realized that the tri-stringer's kill potential isn't exactly consistent. And what I mean by that is most of the interactions you take with enemies aren't always going to result in a kill, since this weapon has been mostly considered a solid chip damage weapon by the community at this point, which I can't disagree with. But if you are deciding to run Respawn Punisher, you really should be aiming to get kills, otherwise you aren't really getting as much value out of it as you could be. Despite this, I still think that it's rare for tri-stringers to die if they aren't getting locked out or flanked. And even though it is best played as a chip damage weapon, I personally still think it has decent killing potential on its own. With all this in mind, I'm still not opposed to running Respawn Punisher on the tri-stringer, but now I want to give another look at Thermal Ink. On the release of Splatoon 3, I was sold pretty quickly on the idea that Thermal Ink would finally be viable for another weapon other than Blob and Hydra. I was using it for the first week of the game, and I was having a good time with it, being able to catch people behind cover much more easily with this ability. Then I shifted over to the Respawn Punisher, and at this point I was starting to feel that my impact on the match at the backline was powered up by this ability since my kills mattered more.
That bow is making me so bald. A Respawn Punisher bow. Ugh.
Very recently though, I started on my return to Thermal Ink as my clothing gear ability. Why? The first thing I want to note is the play pattern of the tri-stringer. Like I said earlier, as a plus side using the Respawn Punisher, good bow players won't die that much, and it's very much possible to become skilled enough to land one-shots with consistency. But the tri-stringer is not a weapon that 100% prioritizes getting direct line-of-sight one-shots. It doesn't have that same ease of killing as an E-liter would. This is something that I did mention in my old gear video, but I didn't really give it that much credit then. Getting consistent one-shot kills all the time is a job that you can already get done with the charger. The unique strength of the tri-stringer is being able to shoot really threatening arc shots. Now these shots may not always kill, but they are sure to cause some really good displacement, almost on the same level that an Explosher can accomplish. And when they do kill, it's a whole different story. You literally can't find any other weapon that will get you insta-kills on enemies behind cover. And what better ability to enhance this very strength than Thermalink? Obviously, to get the same value out of a Tri-Stringer as you would an Explosher is really asking for a lot, since you really need to be accurate with your shots and be able to hit directs to activate the ability. But if you think about it, most of the flaws of Thermalink as an ability don't really affect its usefulness on the bow. For one, its minimum effective range doesn't really conflict with the range you want to play the Tri-Stringer at, so you're fine with that. The fact that it also only shows X-ray while an enemy is standing or attacking is fine too. Most times when an enemy is behind cover holding down a position that needs to be cleared behind cover, they're not staying submerged in their ink the whole time. Take for example, an enemy is playing behind stack on Ink Blot Academy. Most weapons are going to try and challenge mid from this area at some point in the match, and they're going to be standing up as they're firing their weapon. If you manage to land one direct shot on them, for the next 16 seconds, you have a highlighted target to punish them for going in that same crucial area of the map. And while landing arc shot directs to activate the ability can be hard, you only need to land one of the arrows to activate it. And with practice, this is definitely achievable with some consistency. If you aren't really good at landing arc shots though, you aren't going to make much use out of Thermalink. In the same sense, if you aren't really good at landing direct one shots and die a lot, you aren't going to get much value out of Respawn Punisher. After everything I said here, do I think Respawn Punisher is the wrong ability for Tri-Stringer? No. And if I did, I wouldn't have been running it for as long as I have. I think which clothing ability you use comes down to your playstyle and what you want to achieve with the bow. If you want to lean into its Charger-like playstyle, you can run Respawn Punisher. If you want to lean into its Explosher-like playstyle, you can run Thermalink. Do I think you should be running at least one of these two? Yes, absolutely. Both of them bring a very valuable perk for the Tri-Stringer. I think it's absolutely worth it to run either one of them. Now I want to talk about how I added Sub-Saver on my old build. Frankly, I don't think this is a good idea at all looking back, and it's kind of obvious to see why. You would only ever run Sub-Saver if you want to spam your sub-weapon as much as possible, and when your main weapon can essentially spam suction bombs already, and your sub-weapon is Toxic Mist, it's pointless. Instead, I'm going to replace Sub-Saver with Main Saver. I didn't think that this was necessary with the ink efficiency that the Tri-Stringer already had, but after some more time playing this weapon, I've learned that it's extremely useful to be able to spam arrows for as long as possible before refilling on ink. And with 3 stubs of Main Saver, you can get up to 13.4 full charge shots as opposed to only 11.8 full shots without it. Moving on, I'll briefly talk about run speed up. Here's what I said in my last video. I'm also going to recommend a ton of run speed up for this weapon. When you're playing the Tri-Stringer, you're going to be walking around a lot while firing shots. Since you can't store your charge with this weapon in squid form, being able to move quickly while charging up a shot is very beneficial. While it isn't as necessary compared to if you were playing like a Splatling, if I were to stack up on one ability for this weapon, it would be this one. I still think run speed up is a really nice mobility ability. Say that 10 times fast. Mobility ability. Actually, it's not that bad. It's kind of fun actually. I still think run speed up is a really nice mobility ability to have for Tri-Stringer, and I still think you should be running at least 10 ability points of it in your build. Specifically, I'm taking out one main of run speed from my old build to make space for a different main ability. What ability, you ask? Well, Last Ditch Effort is an insanely good ability. It's good for weapons like the Sloshing Machine, a top tier weapon in this early meta of Splatoon 3. One of the reasons for this is because LDE allows it to throw 2 fizzy bombs, which are the best sub weapon in the game right now, on just one tank. So that makes sense there, but you're not going to be needing to spam Toxic Mist on the Tri-Stringer. So what gives? Well, like I said before when I was talking about Main Saver, this bow really benefits from being able to spam arrows for as long as possible, as this improves its stalling potential and cover pressure. And when the enemy is down to just 42 points left to win, you already get the value of a main ability of Main Saver along with the other benefits. On top of this, the Tri-Stringer struggles to deal with being locked out, so having the extra tank capacity when you're losing the lead helps in dealing with those situations. So until this ability gets nerfed, God please nerf it, it's something I think you should look to use for the bow. Now on its special charge up. Just like with Sub-Saver, this is an ability I really am questioning my old self for deciding to use. I still think that Whale is definitely one of the best specials out there for the Tri-Stringer. Being able to combo it with not only mist but also your own exploding arrows is super underrated, and I've gotten a lot of cheeky kills with it. But frankly, the paint output of the Tri-Stringer and the 200 points requirement for the special make it bad to spam anyways. So special charge up really doesn't make that big of a difference. I'll be removing all my special charge up to make space for other abilities in my new build. Now it's time to talk about Swim Speed Up. Everybody knows that Swim Speed Up is overall just a very strong ability for mobility. There it is again. But I didn't have any of it in my old build. Why? Well, because the Tri-Stringer is already a medium weight backline that doesn't really need fast swim speed to cross dangerous open areas and get into positions that allow it to deal damage. While positioning still matters a lot for the Tri-Stringer, it's not as strict as it would be for a Charger, which would need a direct line of sight to find use. I still think that there are other abilities that would find more use on the Tri-Stringer than Swim Speed Up, so I'll still be leaving it behind. I want to talk about the value subs of Splatoon 3 that I mentioned at the beginning of the last video. Before I get to my first recommendation, I want to remind you, if you don't already know, that there are abilities in this game that you should always have at least one sub of in your gear set. These abilities are Quick Super Jump, Ink Resistance, and Sub Defense Up. Since then, my opinion of Ink Res has not changed. I still will be running one sub of Ink Res on my build. As for Quick Super Jump, I'm planning to use 2 subs of it now. The Tri-Stringer can really abuse some certain aggressive angles with its unique range and shot arcing. However, these spots can be really hard for the Tri-Stringer to get out of. On that note, the bow really struggles in general to escape from enemies that rush down their position. The 2 subs of QSJ definitely help out. As the successor of Splatoon 2's Bomb Defense Up Deluxe, Sub-Res has lost the status of a necessary value ability to one of convenience for the most part. It doesn't counter specials like Tenna Missiles anymore. Most people, including me, have put 1 sub on their build so far. There's a chance that you might have come across this tweet. Now, what exactly is this tweet saying? Basically, the indirect hit of Burst Bomb and the individual hits of a charged Fizzy all deal 35 damage. If you run 2 subs of Sub-Res and 1 sub of Ink Res, you will not die to 3 of these hits. Though if you ask me, it's unlikely to be caught in a situation where you're getting hit with all 3 hits of a Fizzy, or spam with 3 burst bombs in a row, so I don't think that justifies the ability as absolutely unnecessary. So at this point, it becomes a question of how much sub-res do you want in your build for convenience? Will you run 2 subs to counter the triple bomb damage? Will you run just 1 for some convenience when fighting against all the bombs in this game? Or will you skip over it entirely? I've decided to leave 1 sub-res on my Tri-Stringer build now. While it isn't on the same level as BDX, it's definitely still nice to have when you're a backline that is very often going to get poked at with bombs. With all that, here's a new build I'll be working towards for the Tri-Stringer. This build was decided on with my hours of experience with the bow in Splatoon 3. What do you think? If you want to know my reasoning for any of the abilities in this build, feel free to go through the chapters in this video. If you like this different style of video and would like to see more thorough discussion style videos from me, please consider leaving a like on the video. Thank you so much for watching, and see ya!